Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. I'm your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us on today. A special welcome to those of you who are listening or watching for the first time. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. For the past several weeks, I've been sharing different talks that I've delivered over the years that when I really listen to them and consider it, I find them to be very podcast worthy. And they actually add a layer of enjoyment, for lack of a better word, because of the visuals that you're able to see that you can't see if I was just talking about these. And we just started doing videos at the beginning of the year. So we're continuing the Talk Circuit series. Today, I'm going back to 2021 to a talk that I delivered for the folks in UX South Africa, another talk that I delivered for the folks in South Africa. And this time, the topic is overcoming the mirage of UX ambiguity. A lot of people think that UX is ambiguous. They feel like we have a lot of terms that are not defined. They feel like we don't have any standards. The people who've been around for a while know better. We do have standards. We do have definitions that are very solid. We can even define the discipline today. There was a time, I understand how some of these people feel, because there was a time when in the discipline, I couldn't even define user experience, and people would ask me at one point in time. I understand how it is. I can empathize with those people, but you do not have to be the victim of these components. You don't have to be victimized by what appears to be ambiguity. And this talk will help people to overcome that issue in the discipline. So let's go ahead and dive into this talk. Another again from the Talk Circuit series. I believe we do have another 5 or 6, but we're going to spread those out because we're going to start sharing some new content, some new recordings, some new sessions with you, especially in light of the anniversary that we're celebrating now. So be on the lookout for those. But for now, let's go ahead and dive into the talk, Overcoming the Mirage of UX Ambiguity. Enjoy. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here today. Thanks to the folks at UXSA, to Theo and to Iggy for having me here today. And we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to approach this a little differently. For those of you that might be familiar with me, I'm going to dive into this a little bit differently than I usually do. So if the pace seems to be a little different, it's part of the strategy of this particular talk. So as mentioned, my topic today is overcoming the mirage of UX ambiguity. And that may not make a lot of sense now, but it will very, very shortly, I'm sure. So we're going to start off, and this is what I mean by the tempo. The difference is I'm going to start this talk off with a scenario. So ride with me on the scenario in a bit. I'm sure it might not be that off-putting or that strange to many of us here. So we have a deal in the scenario. A deal recently landed a position as a project manager for a new up-and-coming software company. They're doing great things. And he learned that the company is trying to become more user-centered in their design efforts. They want to make sure that they're not leaving the users out. They want to make sure that they're not just approaching this thing and guessing and throwing things together. They want to be more user-centered. They've heard the reports that the more user-centered you are, the more successful you'll be. And so they want their piece of that pie, so to speak. He's been engaging with people on LinkedIn. He's been attending meetups because as a project manager, he feels that it's very important for him to learn about UX. He's not a UX professional, but he wants to learn more about UX so he can speak intelligently on the subject, so he can engage with UX team members, so he can understand what it is, the benefit that UX brings to the table, so he can be able to help to manage that and interact with everybody that's tied to it as best he can. He wants to broaden his understanding of UX. Now, that's great as a goal, right? But much to his surprise, he's running into a few problems as he tries to expand his horizons a bit. Sound familiar? You know anybody that's like a deal today? Many of the interactions that he's had, they've left him confused. They've left him bewildered, frustrated, you name it. So we want to take a look at Adil's latest encounter as he's trying to learn more about UX. So he went to a local meetup. And at this meetup, he met 9 different people. Much to his surprise, the 9 people that he met, they all had different titles. And a lot of people will say titles are not important, but titles are a means of communicating who you are to the world, as well as who you are within the company. So there's a lot to be said about titles. And when titles are all over the place, that just creates a lot of confusion and a lot of people in the same boat as Adil. These 9 people have the following titles, and none of them are the same: UX designer, product designer, UX UI designer, UX developer, UX researcher, UX specialist, UI designer, service designer, and UX visual designer. Now, Adil thought that he was going to get some clarity, and he was really shocked to see all of these different titles. And so it just made his head spin, basically, because he couldn't, by hearing people's titles, he couldn't put his finger on what they did. So he engaged in conversation. And most of these people spent time during their little conversation talking about the design tools that they used. One of the people was more infatuated with colors. They weren't really talking about UX. But amongst these 9 people, nobody was really talking about UX and what it really is. They were talking around UX, like talking about Figma and talking about Adobe XD and talking about InVision and talking about Marvel. And so they're talking about all these different tools, but they weren't really talking about the work that goes into the tools. So Adil was, again, he had the titles. Now he's got people that are talking about everything but UX. And he was not, again, he's not a UX professional, but he had enough knowledge to know that nobody was really talking about the subject at hand. Now, as the conversation continued, there was one person that did appear to be more grounded and experienced. But when that person would talk, the other 8 people were getting upset. The other 8 people were rolling their eyes or making sarcastic remarks, things of that nature. And so that made Adil even more confused, because this person obviously knew what they were talking about, but the other 8 people weren't really respecting it. There was no mutual professional respect. So Adil didn't quite get that. One of the people who came across as very passionate, not accurate, but passionate, talked about the importance of design thinking. It's really popular today as well. And they expressed excitement about the how might we mindset and what they could get out of the how might we part of the process. Now, again, Adil knows he isn't a UX expert at all, but he knew that the things that people were saying were not accurate. And when it came to the person talking about design thinking, Adil had attended a recent presentation, a recent talk that where someone, the keynote speaker for this talk was Don Norman, the first person who had UX in their job title back in the mid-90s when he was working at Apple. And in that talk, Don Norman said, when it comes to design thinking, he literally said that by itself, design thinking is worthless. So when this person was really excited about design thinking, all Adil could think about was what happened in that talk and what Don Norman said. And so again, further confusion. So all of this is done. Adil, who was quite casual at this event, as you can see, he left the conversation more confused than when it started. He thought, man, I really hope that this event is going to help me to learn what I want to learn, help me to get the clarity that I'm seeking. And so he thought the titles would help. He was wrong. He expected to be better equipped to talk about UX with his peers about anything that was UX related. He didn't feel that way at all. He thought that hearing people talk about how they worked and how they went about their daily activities would provide more clarity. They talked about all types of things that really didn't have a lot to do with UX, and he knew that. He thought he'd be able to improve his level of communication with other UX professionals. That didn't pan out quite too well. He thought he'd be empowered to engage effectively with the UX team at his company, but instead, he ended up feeling challenged, clueless, and powerless, basically, and felt that when conversations came up, his mindset that he was just going to avoid these conversations. He couldn't speak intelligently. He did not have any confidence at all. And so he was beginning to change his strategy because of everything that was happening. So his road to confusion, basically, it comes full circle. He tried to get some understanding. He couldn't. After all the interactions that he endured, he drew the conclusion that the world of UX was unclear, that people in UX lacked direction. He felt that the lack of agreement among UX professionals was a key indicator that his feelings, he felt that validated how he felt at this time. And he was tired of putting effort into it. So he was reluctant to delve into the topic anymore. He wasn't going to any more meetups. He wasn't going to read any more articles. He was pretty much done, at least for that purpose. He was done with it. And so those conclusions, that was his mindset. So have you ever been there? Have you ever met anyone who expressed feelings similar to what Adil is feeling based on this scenario? Well, this is what is happening in UX today. Is it a great field? Yes. Does it bring a lot of value? Yes. Are there a lot of opportunities? Yes. But there's also a lot of misinformation out there. And there's a lot of people that are just entering the field. And the reason I have this picture of these baby birds here is because a lot of what's going on in UX today, specifically when it comes to the attitudes of a lot of people that are just getting in it or just trying to learn about it, there's this thing that I call baby bird syndrome. And with baby bird syndrome, when you are really eager for information, you've got your mouth open like these baby birds, and you got your eyes closed just like these baby birds, and you are hungry for whatever is fed to you. These baby birds don't know anything. All they expect is for mama bird to drop some worms in their mouths. And that's how people are when we are hungry. If there's any, it was mentioned that I'm into photography. When I started getting really deep into photography and really passionate, I was like these baby birds. And so my future, my state, my growth, my maturity was dependent upon the validity and the trustworthiness of that which was going to be put in my mouth. And so a lot of UXers, same exact thing. New UXers, same exact thing. And so people don't realize that when you're in this baby bird state, you're vulnerable, very vulnerable. And so if somebody happens to give you something that's not accurate, if somebody paints a picture that's not properly reflective of the discipline, you in that vulnerable state, if you get misinformation, there's something that comes out of that. Ambiguity. Vulnerability plus misinformation equals ambiguity. Now, the topic that I'm talking to you about today is overcoming the mirage of UX ambiguity. So, and what is ambiguity? Somebody might be wondering. Well, here's your definition. It's doubtfulness or uncertainty of meaning or intention. That's about how Adil felt, right? That's how a lot of people feel after they engage. Even a lot of people that are new to UX and are doing the work, they feel that we don't have standards. They feel that we don't have any direction. I heard somebody recently make a statement. They said that they're new to UX and they want to learn a little bit so they can apply their own style to it. There's no style to UX. UX is UX. This is a discipline. If you're a doctor and you're an up and coming doctor and you're studying medicine, you're not going to apply your own style to it. If you're going to be a specialist that's looking at feet, then you need to understand the intricacies of how feet are structured. There's no style. And UX is the same type of science where there are things that are available to us. And if you're going to excel in the discipline, there's not a style. You need to learn more about the discipline. Otherwise, you're subject to that excitement or that vulnerability. And if you don't have the filter, which when you're getting started, we didn't, then you're liable to just take in anything that's given to you. So that vulnerability plus misinformation, when you get bad information, and there's a ton of it out there, is ambiguity. And so it looks like things aren't clear. It looks like things are not solid. It looks like we don't have standards and structure, but the truth is that we do. So the ambiguity that we see is really just a mirage. It looks like something is there. It looks like UX is ambiguous. It looks like we don't have standards. It looks like we don't understand and that we don't agree, but those things are all a mirage. They're all a mirage. Now, that mirage is a reality for many people because that's all they can see. But we're talking about overcoming it, right? We want to overcome that. And basically, one of the first things we need to understand today is that there are common topics, mindsets, and questions associated with UX. What are our standards? We have them. What are UX's definitive modes of operation? How can we operate from day to day? It is possible to do this. What are the value proposals? What are our processes, methods, methodologies? What are the principles? All of these things are available if we make sure that we tap into the right resources. This is how we overcome, because we all face it. And it might be today, it might be UX. Another day, it might be something else that we're trying to learn about. And no matter what the discipline is, we always have to overcome any issues of ambiguity associated with that discipline. How do we overcome in UX? The answer is really simple. It's the facts. It's all about the facts. So when you think about the facts, one of the things we need is that we need reliable and experienced people that we can tap into. When I was first coming up in the discipline, I designed my first website in 95. We didn't call it UX back then. I was using principles that I later came to find out were part of the UX discipline, but we didn't call it the things. I didn't even know what a lot of things were called, but I was doing them. I was trying to make sure I had a sound information architecture. I was trying to make sure that my content was readable, things that people call today UX writer. They have this new title that's popped up, this new function. I was doing things that people call UX writing back in 1995, 1996, 1997. I didn't call it that. And I do contend, by the way, that what people today call UX writing should be part of the discipline and not split off into something separate. We can talk about that another time, though. But we need reliable people. For me back then, it was books. We didn't have degree programs. We didn't have the Interaction Design Foundation to tap into. We didn't have a lot of different resources. There weren't a lot of talks that were being delivered when I was first coming along. So I depended upon the books. And so those were my reliable and experienced professionals. There were no mentors, not that I had access to, but as time has gone, there are a lot more of us that are practitioners. We've got talks. We've got all types of resources that are available to us, sans the misinformation. But if you want to thrive, if you want to excel in UX, this is one of the main ways that anybody can grow. You need to have a mentor if you're coming up. You need to have people if you're far along in your profession. It's good to be able to spend time talking to people from time to time. This is why we go to the meetups. This is why sometimes we just have a basic conversation. We just started what's called the UX Chit Chat Hour, where we meet people from all over the world on a monthly basis for roughly an hour to an hour, 15 minutes, just to talk about the work, just to talk about some of our challenges, things of that nature. And that provides a ton of clarity. And as we said, the facts come forth. And the funny thing is, in the midst of those, I'll digress for a moment. In the midst of those sessions, there are always a lot of people that are just starting out. And I find it surprising for me when I look back at my past, it was 10 full years that I was operating in that arena before I would even take the time. I'm talking about, well, actually 8 to 10 years where I embarked as a full-time UX professional. That was when I started getting out and speaking and things of that nature. I was not going to sit around and talk and try to put myself on the stage at a certain point in my career. I wanted to learn it. I wanted to make sure that when I open my mouth, that I'm going to bring value. And when I'm really surprised how a lot of people who are new how quick they are to share, how quick they are to talk. And I hear them saying things, and the things they're saying are not accurate. It's the misinformation, which for me, that puts me into action. It thrusts me into action. Now I have to shoot that down because I know the danger of the misinformation, and that's not popular, as you've probably guessed. So we need reliable and experienced professionals sharing what they know. And then if you're up and coming, you have to be able to identify the reliable and experienced professionals and tap into what they have to offer. Those facts will help you to have more clarity and overcome the ambiguity that we spoke of. And speaking of that, if you connect to the fake it till you make it crowd, there are people who literally say this. They mention this as a philosophy for career maturation. No, you don't fake it till you make it. Take that effort that you put into faking it and put into building true skill, true knowledge, true acumen, and then you will be able to dispel, to overcome the ambiguity. Now, for me, just briefly, again, I designed my first website in 1995. So we're talking 26 plus years now that I've been working in experience design as a whole. I'm a former freelance web designer. That's how I got started. And I would do UX as part of my web design process. Didn't know that then. I know it now. So I'm claiming it. I've worked pretty broad footprint, which I'll share in a moment, which includes working all the way up to what we call the Fortune 50. I think just about everybody should be familiar with what that is. So my experience level is across the board with who I've worked with. I'm skilled across all 4 UX pillars, and the places I worked afforded me the opportunity to learn those things. That's something we don't think about. Your growth, your maturity as a UX professional will be limited to where you work and the types of work afforded to you at that company. So if you start out as a researcher, but you're only doing research, you're actually going to run into an issue. What is it? What issue is that? You're only doing research, and the less you know about UX from a broad perspective, the less pinpointed your research will be. So it's really important if you're working in research and any other specialization in UX, is really important so that you can broaden your perspective to tap into mentors, to tap into books, to tap into meetups. Because if you're a researcher, but you don't know anything about heuristics, that's going to detrimentally impact your research. If you are a researcher, but you don't learn anything about cognitive psychology or about cognition, that's going to limit your research. If you are a researcher, but you don't know anything about best practices when it comes to interaction design, that's going to detrimentally impact your research. So we have to broaden ourselves. Otherwise, we're always at risk of having ambiguity impact us the wrong way or creep in, and we have an ambiguous mindset because we lack facts. Anytime we lack facts, we're at risk. So over the course of my career, I got experience in heuristics and usability. I got experience in information architecture and in research and interaction and interface design. And so that gave me that broad perspective. So I was able to dispel any ambiguities that might creep into my own operation. I'm a former hiring manager, so I know a lot about that arena. That's not an area of ambiguity for me. And I've got 2 master's degrees, one in information management, specializing in user needs, and another one in UX design. So 2 UX related master's degrees. And here's my footprint. This is my professional footprint. So very broad, out there, a lot of different types of work, a lot of different types of arenas that I've been able to apply my work to, and really happy and again, fortunate to have been able to do that. So those things said, when I gained all of that experience, as mentioned, heuristics and usability, information architecture, research, interaction and interface design, and then all of the different subsets and related elements as you see before you on the screen, I was able to come to an understanding where UX, because of all this experience, is no longer an arena of ambiguity. There's no risk of ambiguity because I was able to gain an understanding of each one of the 4 pillars and of the subsets. And if anything, something like the virtual reality or augmented reality, I haven't had the opportunity to do a lot of work in that arena when it comes to UX. I haven't had the opportunity to do any work when it comes to interactive voice responses or IVR. So those are arenas that I haven't had experience in, but I understand how UX is applicable. So now, again, even though I haven't worked there, I'm not at risk when it comes to feeling that there's some ambiguity about that. I understand there are standards. I also understand that UX is pervasive. And once you apply it in one arena, it's easy to transition that and apply it to another. So again, I'm safeguarded when it comes to dealing with ambiguity. And one of the issues of ambiguity is that if you feel UX is ambiguous in any area or from any perspective, it's going to make it that much more difficult for you to represent the discipline to your clients, to your stakeholders, to your other team members. So we need to labor to overcome the ambiguity, the mirage of UX ambiguity, if you will. It's just a mirage. It's not really a thing. It just appears to be a thing, and it can seem real sometimes because it's overwhelming. But the more we embrace the facts, the better off we'll be. So remember, the ambiguity associated with UX is actually a mirage. Clarity is achieved by embracing the facts associated with the tenets of the discipline. Make sure to tap into and connect with viable, trustworthy knowledge resources. Don't embrace the person who's on Instagram, who tells you that they're a mentor and they have no experience in UX. These people exist. They haven't worked anywhere. Don't embrace the person who says they're a director in UX, and then you find out they've only been working in UX for 3-4 months to a year. And then when you go and look at their LinkedIn profile, they've never done any UX work anywhere else. They went to a boot camp, they graduated, and now they're a director. Okay. It happens, but it shouldn't. And so do you think that they're spreading misinformation? I'll stop there. The more you embrace the tenets, the clearer things will be. The clearer things are, the more optimized your collaborative efforts will be. And the more optimized your collaborative efforts are, the more value you can bring across the board. And the more value you bring, the happier you will be. And I think everybody values that. So this is how we get there. This is how we overcome issues associated with the mirage of UX ambiguity. And that's the end of the talk, folks. So thank you for attending today. If you want to know where you can find me and engage with me, and I engage with everybody everywhere all the time, my podcast, The World of UX with Darren Hood, is there, where I talk about this type of stuff all the time. And if you ever have a topic you'd like me to cover, just let me know. I'm on Twitter as Darren Hood and at UX Uncensored and The World of UX. I have a Facebook page. I have a YouTube channel. I write on Medium now. I'm on Pinterest. I'm starting to invade the Pinterest and the Instagram space. And we also just started a UX-only social media network called Engage. The URL is long. I need to do something about shortening that URL so I can present it. But if you're interested in joining us on Engage, reach out to me via LinkedIn, reach out to me and ask me for the link. I will send you an invitation because you might not be able to find us, I don't think otherwise. So, but I'd love to, more than happy to share an invite with you so you can come on out where we just talk about nothing but UX and the stuff that we are sharing out there. And you're not detrimentally impacted by a bad algorithm. Is in another nameless social media entity, well, several of them, where somebody posts something and you never see it. We have everything structured really well. You can find the content, you can tap into it, stuff that will truly help you to vault forward as a UX professional, and no misinformation, none of those things. We're trying to help people to overcome the mirage of UX ambiguity. So, folks, that is it. So thank you.
Darren, thank you so much. I mean, honestly, apart from the insights, the information that you share, it's just this energy that you have. When you're speaking, it's motivating, it's inspiring. I absolutely enjoy that. Lots of positive comments in the comment section. People saying thank you, really enjoyed it. I think everybody to please ask if there are any questions. I mean, Darren, like Darren said, is very forthcoming in his availability. He answers, he responds. But if you do have any questions now specific to the talk or something else, please ask away. We have the time. We've got Darren now. So please ask away. Thank you so much for that awesome talk.
By the way, I'm going to post that link to engage here in the chat here in a moment. I'll get that. So if anybody wants to join us out there, you will be able to.
We've got one question so far from Candice, and the question reads, do you have any tips for separating the good online UX courses from the bad ones?
Oh, that's an awesome question. Actually, I did a talk. There's two answers to that. I did a talk, and you can find it on my YouTube channel. And it's called The Trouble with UX Education. And because it's bad. A lot of people will share information because they just like being, a lot of people trying to achieve celebrity status in UX today. It just is. Okay. Darren, that's negative. No, if you had a flat tire or if there's nails on the road up ahead, would you want to know that? Yeah, you would, instead of just somebody just watching you run over. So I spend a lot of time letting folks know, I know this isn't popular. I know it doesn't feel good, but you're going to be happier if you know this now. And so there's a lot of, there it is. Thank you, Theo. There we go. Yeah, check that talk out. Because not only does it help you it gives a little bit of insight with regard to what's going on in UX education. It provides you with really a strategy for how to go about tapping into and identifying some more sound education. I talk about the different options that are available. There are a lot of good books. There's some bad books too. Oh, so sometimes you're gonna be tickled about the end result of what I'm about to say. There's some good books. There's some bad books. I actually have multiple book recommendation lists on Medium and on LinkedIn. I have an all-encompassing book recommendation list. I have an information architecture recommendation list. I have a cognitive psychology and interaction design recommendation list. And so to keep people from, you don't want to spend money on books that are where you're going to end up needing a mental enema later or a cognitive enema because the content is bad. This is another reason why, and I'll say this now, this is what I was going to say for later. It's important to have mentors that you can tap into, because a real mentor will help you to avoid the bad resources. So that's it. I'm going to be really specific here. At the risk of ruffling some feathers. Yes, absolutely, Daniela. So everybody ready to have your thank you. All right. Somebody's popping the book list out there. Beware of boot camps. Let's start there. Let's make it easy. And I've heard that boot camps are different in South Africa than they are in the States. And I remember talking to, I think, Ignatius about that some time ago. And it's different. Or Jonathan Copeland and I were talking about the difference between boot camps in South Africa and boot camps elsewhere. But in general, if you are thinking on stateside and in Europe, wherever you find the career foundries and the what's the other one? Lambdas and the General Assemblies of the world? Absolutely not. Because when it comes to, and I'll talk about this in that talk about education, there is something called pedagogy. Some people pronounce it pedagogy. Science, like there's a science associated with UX. There's also a science associated with education. And I'm not just a UXer, I'm an educator. So I'm wrapping up a PhD in education as we speak. And oh yes, they are not. Oh man, yeah, Jax just said they're too expensive. So that way you don't spend the money on it because it's ridiculous. These people are spending anywhere from $7,000 to $25,000 for stuff you could have looked up on Google and picked up on yourself. Really. So that's an insult. The pedagogy is bad. The information that's being presented is recycled. A lot of the teachers graduated last week. How many of you would be interested in spending $15,000 knowing that your instructor just graduated the week before your class started? And they have zero experience working anywhere in UX. Would you really appreciate that? That's what's happening. Then you have what's called the MOOCs. And MOOC is an acronym, MOOC, which stands for Massively Open Online Courses. And that's your Udemy, edX, Khan Academy, all of those different types of places, Coursera. And I was endorsing one program through Coursera that is $49 US a month for 9 months. And it's in conjunction with University of Michigan, who has a good human-computer interaction program. And that was something that you had real instructors. It's offered through an accredited institution. And it gives you a look at design and at research. And all of them really are providing foundations to you, even if you got a master's degree. It's more foundational than anything else. It's just that when you go to something through an accredited institution, you've got sound pedagogy and you've got accountability and things like that. The one problem I've heard about, and I still need to investigate, the one problem I've heard about with going through the Coursera program through University of Michigan, I think there's another one through San Jose State also that some people like, is that your work is graded by peers. Okay, that needs to change. Peers, I don't need, if I'm learning UX and you're learning UX and the person next to us on either side is learning UX, the last thing we need is for for us and for another person to be grading our work if we're trying to build and move toward mastery. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. Everybody got that? That doesn't work. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit more. There is a program, a certificate program. It's neither an undergrad nor a grad certificate program offered through Cornell University. It's $3,600. It's the same length as the program in Coursera. It's 9 months, but it's offered through, I hear people coming in already. But again, it's accredited, it's solid, the pedagogy is good, and it won't break the bank. At $3,600, it won't break the bank. They even offered a 30% off. So they had a 30% off special last week. So that's, close to $1,000. Actually, it's more than $1,000 at 30% off. 720 plus 360, whatever that is. Yeah, that's close to $1,100 actually. So somebody said that's a lot of chocolate and sweets. Yeah, you're right. So you have those programs. The boot camps, avoid at all costs. Here's the other one that's going to blow a lot of people away. The Google certification, very popular, right? How many of you are aware that we are all guilty of at some point in time, for the most part, at least 95% of us are guilty of idolizing a brand. And that as soon as a brand says that they're gonna do something, everybody is all in, applying zero critical thinking to checking out to see whether or not that thing has any value. That's another one. Google is not an expert in UX design. I don't care what anybody says. And I don't care who works there. They definitely are not experts in pedagogy. They are not educators. They are a for-profit organization that's looking to make money and will do anything to vault their brand. So I see people on LinkedIn all the time. Oh, I just graduated. I just got my certificate from Google. Okay, good. You know, that's the same as you coming to my house and me writing my name on a garbage bag and handing it to you. And then you can go and post that on LinkedIn and say that you earned that. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And they're touting design thinking and design sprints and things like that. As you could see, when you look at that illustration I showed you, showing you what UX is, you think they're covering that? No, they're not. Also, people are cheating. We hear lots of stories about people cheating. Can you please, because their peers are grading the work. And then they'll say, hey, can you just pass me? Because I just want to get this certification. So there are people who they don't want to really learn. They just want to get the certification, hoping that'll help them to get a job or something like that. And Google hasn't put anything in place to help keep that stuff at bay. Not to mention the fact that Google's not an expert in UX. Neither is IBM. They're not. You know, I'm guilty of that. I went to work for IBM before, and I'm going, IBM, oh my God, they made me an offer. I got to go. This was one of the worst places I ever worked in my life. I'm just going to say it. So, I mean, maybe it's just where the division I went to, and I do think it's, because I don't think it's a bad company, but my experience was terrible. And it could have just been, I heard about others that it's just like that. It depends on where you are. But the truth of the matter is IBM is not, they're not experts in UX design. Google is not an expert in UX design. And somebody was saying Google is wrong. And yeah, they are. They are. What has Google done? What has Google done for the discipline? I'm not talking about the products they roll out. What have they done for the discipline to vault it forward? Nothing. If anything, they've done things to hurt it, especially with the book called, what's it called? Sprint, where they talked about bringing design, the design sprint process and how it works. And they say in the book, this was done for startups. Well, if it was done for startups, why in the world are we trying to do it in a company with 500,000 employees? It doesn't work. The sprint process doesn't work in an established organization, but our people are trying to do it. So did Google say, don't do that in a large organization? No, they didn't. So these are some of the educators. This is some of the bad stuff that's out there. I know people who will charge you a small amount to go through courses in some other moves, and they're not really teaching UX. Matter of fact, I know people who are just trying to stir people up and get them in their corner so they can make money off of you. They're not really helping the discipline. So, and I can't name those individuals, but there's a lot of bad education. There's another person on YouTube that has a YouTube channel. They've been working in UX for 5 years. And they've got like some crazy, like 10,000 people following them. And how much do you think you know in 5 years? How much do you really think you know in 5 years? And then those people will say, oh, well, I worked at Facebook and I worked at Amazon. So now that means that they know everything? I don't think so. So as an educator, as a budding PhD in educational leadership, as well as a professional. Oh, by the way, I have more experience as an educator than I do as far as length of time, as far more than I do there than I do as a UX professional, which I don't think there's many UXers that can say that. So it's and UX is lifelong learning. You will never stop learning. You will never stop growing. So it's, we don't celebrate certain things because as soon as you finish learning that, you're off to learning something else. And depending upon where you work, as mentioned during the talk, it's going to shift anyway. So I know long answer, but I thought I'd touch on a few other things.
Oh, good.
I will say one other thing. I just saw one comment, if I could address that. Somebody said there's no such thing as a bad student, just bad teachers. I want to expand that a moment. Let's start here. There are bad institutions and there are good institutions. There are good teachers and there are bad teachers. There are expert teachers and there are people who are just assigned to teach a course. People don't think about that. There are 3 types of students. There is actually 4. There's something called an adventurer, something called a vacationer, something called a prisoner, and then you've got just a god-awful student. There are such things as bad students. I have seen students, they don't want to learn anything. And they're vindictive and they're nasty. And so it depends on you be the best you. But you could be an excellent student and run into a bad teacher. I'm sure we've all been there. And then you can be a great teacher and have a terrible student. I mean, there's so many mixes that it's just good not to stereotype it, but just know that there's a lot of moving parts. And I'll leave it at that.
I think you might have put it down, but let me ask the question from Jax. Any resources on helping design leaders skill up?
Let's say that last part again, on helping design leaders, and I missed part.
Skill up.
Yeah. And I'll refer to another talk I did. And actually, it's on my podcast. I covered something called the UX cycle of excellence. It's a 7-step process that I still do to this day. And I've been doing it my whole career. I was doing it before I realized I was doing it. And I think there's like 3 or 4 episodes where I talk about it on my podcast, but it starts off by properly defining the discipline. Basically, and I'm sort of summarizing it, you basically constantly evaluate yourself to see if you have any knowledge or skill gaps. Thank you. There it is. Oh, yes, I did do a Medium article on it too. Thank you. Yes. So you can see the link to Theo just posted the link to UX Cycle of Excellence over on Medium, where I put the whole thing out there. When you truly identify and define the discipline, and there's the podcast as well. When you identify, because a lot of people, they don't define or identify UX accurately. And when that happens, the cycle stops. You won't be able to continue to grow. So those are the main parts. And so when you find you have a knowledge and a skill gap, find out what you can do to fill that gap. And then you just keep doing it, which is again why I call it a cycle. So like I've been doing it now for 26 years. Every time I found out something I didn't know, I made it a point to find out. If I found out there was something that I did know that I felt like I could be better in, broaden my knowledge and skill, I did some work to try and god awful student the gap. I just saw that. Then you fill that gap, and you always, that's why it's good to keep people around you that will let you know when there's something you could grow in. There's an old proverb that says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. There's people were like, so I'm real talk with you guys, right? You guys and gals, real talk. We need this real talk because that's what vaults us forward. And there are people who will try to say that I'm being negative. They're all gaslighting when they do that. They don't even know what gaslighting is, but they're gaslighting. I need to know where I stand. I need to know what state I'm in. Would you folks agree? And then I need to get better, and then and have somebody point that out. Yeah, you did great on these 10 things you just did. You did great on 9. Let's try to sharpen up that 10th area. Hey, okay, cool. Now let's get to work on that. And so that's what we need to do, but not, oh, you did great on those 9. Let's just go celebrate those 9. Because I come across a lot of people who like to sugarcoat things and make people feel good, and they don't mind letting you keep that one area that needs improvement in that state. That's going to bite you later. That's going to cost you a job later. That's going to keep you from getting a raise later. Here's the big one that the people miss. Intrinsic benefits. It's going to keep you from being satisfied later. How about that? How about the satisfaction we get out of doing this work? Don't you love designing a solution and watching the users delight in it? Don't you like putting something together and watch the profits of the company and the KPIs increase because of the work that you did? Don't you get something out of that? Well, if you lack something, then your ability to bring that value begins to diminish. And then there's a domino effect. So I'm going to tell you, I mean, if you're interacting with me, I'm going to let you know. I'm not going to be nasty about it. I mean, we're going to be professional. We're going to be tactful, but got to let you know if there's something that's going on. I don't know. Somebody made a statement. I was in a meetup, and this one might resonate with a lot of people too. I was in a meetup just recently, and somebody said, yeah, you know, like Henry Ford said, if he had asked people what they wanted, they would have just said faster horses. Henry Ford didn't say that. He actually didn't say. I got fooled too. And I said, wait, man, that's pretty good. And then I found out, oh, he didn't say that. So then I got to drop that from my repertoire. So when I heard that person say it, we were on Zoom, in a Zoom call. I sent that person a private message. Hey, Henry Ford didn't actually say that. And then they sent me a private message back, and we interacted. So I don't have to tell them that in front of everybody, but I still have to let them know, because, okay, you're you, I'm me, but we're all connected. If you're a UXer, we're all part of the UX family. And if you let anybody suffer or misrepresent the discipline, it's going to hurt you. So you got to say something. That's how I see it. I got to say something because the discipline has been good to me, and I'm going to help others so it can be good to them too. And that's why I'm here today, even doing this talk, because help somebody to overcome the ambiguity of, or the mirage of UX ambiguity. It's not ambiguous. People just think it is. So help people to overcome it. Help people to represent the discipline the right way. Help people to enjoy what they do. Help people to grow. We're connected, you folks. We're connected, you and I. If we never see each other again, we're connected. We're still connected. And so I always want to do what I can. That's why I do what I do on my podcast. That's why I'm putting together the YouTube channel. That's why we put together the social media, the new social media platform, Engage, so that we can help one another. But when we let people write books, people are doing this today, books that are all full of recycled information, acting like they're sharing something new. I got to say something about it, because they're misrepresenting the discipline. And somebody who's not a UXer will see it. It's better for us to see it before they do, because when they say something about it, they're not going to be nice about it when they find out. So it's better for us to find it, discuss it amongst ourselves, and fix it and go forward, instead of letting it go because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. That I need somebody. People will say, but Darren, isn't that judgy? Yeah, it is. Judge me. Judge me. Because guess what? We can't turn off judging anyway. You judge my talk today. You judge my talk today. It amazes me when people say, oh, you're being judgy. Yeah, you're being judgy when you said I was being judgy. So what's up with hypocrite? So anyway, Judge me. I just want you to be accurate. And if my car is dirty, tell me it's dirty. If my tie is crooked, tell me it's crooked. If something is in my nose, let me know. Just don't let me sit up there, being excited and being exuberant. And there's something in my nose, and you're sitting there and you see it. Tell me. So I think my nose, I'm embarrassing myself. And every moment I can see it, it's funny. You ever seen it? I've seen it. I'm like, hey, dude, your fly is down. You're in front of the whole company. Your fly is down. Hey, I forgot there's a phrase that you can say, so you can say it under rant. Let somebody know their fly is down. You gotta let somebody know. Don't let people go down that road if they're gonna cause a problem, because we're connected. And because you're connected to me, I gotta respect you to the max. To the max.
Thank you.
And that's why I do what I do.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much for that. We're blessed. God, I love you. So, another question, and this is function. Because Seth was speaking just before you. So Seth says, great talk as always, Darren, fellow OG class of 95. So my question, I think they did great there. How do you strike a balance between an immature industry and the individual? Largely in SA, I'd say even the industry people doing the hiring and managing of UX newcomers generally don't know what they don't know, respectfully. So how do you get the well-meaning individuals to care when the industry rewards the opposite?
Oh, we just got to stay the course. That's what I found. Stay the course. Always. A lot of times I have a strategy. I will speak. I'll say something. I don't know who doesn't know what they don't know in a given setting. So I will talk to everybody in a certain, not when I'm doing a talk, but if we're just engaging, we're just interacting. I will talk as if you know what I'm talking about. Now, the purpose of that is that if I began to talk to you like you didn't know what I was talking about, and you didn't I just come across as condescending? Yes. So for that reason, I'm gonna just assume that you know exactly what I'm talking about. So then, if you're being honest, so it's an honesty check on my end, because a lot of times I'll do that and I do know that you don't know, but I still do it anyway, because I want to see how honest you are. So when you ask, okay, I'm glad you asked me that question. Now let me give you some more clarity. And based on the interactions, we can go, determines how deep we go. When I'm interacting, when it comes to organizations and they don't know, the name of the game is to find out what they know, what they don't know, to assess them as best we can, and then find out what they're in the market to do as far as helping to manage that maturity level. What can we do to help them to grow? What can we do? What can they really take right now? Because the mere fact that somebody is willing to grow doesn't mean that you can give them everything in the kitchen sink. So now that means that if you see that they're in it, that they're really interested and truly growing, then we need to establish a relationship, because they're likely not going to grow. Everybody can't grow. Like the boot camp say, you can learn UX in 6 months. No, you can't. Nobody can. We didn't, and nobody else is going to do it either. So we need to establish a relationship, because that means that we need to, I'm doing talks for students at UXD. Those are happening over time. I've been invited into companies to do UX talks. So those are relationships that get started, and we give them information. Hopefully that's handed off to the people who are doing the UX that are there when I'm gone. They manage the relationships going forward. And that's the other thing. And I think this is part of the question as well. Let me know if I'm off point, but the managing UX, a lot of people don't spend time managing the UX maturity levels in their companies. and they leave it to the people who know nothing about UX to manage it, because somebody's managing it. Somebody is. And if the people who are managing it don't know they're managing it, then it's not going to get managed. So there has to be some type of conscious effort that's given to make sure, are we hiring the right people? What are our processes? Why in the world are we interviewing people that we know are not what we're looking for? Why are we interviewing people that are obviously lying on their resume? And yes, that's extremely popular today. What are we doing internally to make sure that we have buy-in from our leadership for UX initiatives? Somebody has to manage all this. Whether it's the manager, a team leader, if you don't really have there are some UX departments that don't have leads or managers. They have somebody that they report to, but that person's not really a UX lead. So somebody has to take that lead, because the company has to be guided, shepherded, if you will, into the right mindset so that UX can grow and advance. So yeah, do your talks, hold your events, hold classes within the company, whatever, but you got to find out who they are, find out what their goals are, find out what their buy-in is on the short term and the long term. And then somebody's got to be in the business of managing that. So did I answer it?
I mean, for me, I think you did. I mean, see you.
Seth, let me know if I got it.
This is just an old statement to the attendees. Don't you just love the way Darren takes a question and just demolishes it with a huge answer? That's awesome. Absolutely love that. And so I subscribe to the podcast. We're listening to it, and I would urge anybody to listen to it. There's I think I'm gonna call it the series of I think it's called So You Want to Become a UX or something like that. That's a brilliant series to listen to. I think it's something like 8, 9, or 10.
9. I think it might be more, but I think it was 9.
So that, and it is
I finally realized, oh my God, I got to end this.
Well, I would urge anybody to listen to that series. It's very insightful. It's awesome. Darren, thank you so much for awesome talk and a brilliant Q&A. Everybody, please reach out to Darren if you want to connect. He's available on so many platforms. I can't list them all, but like you said, Twitter, Instagram, the podcasts, the LinkedIn, everywhere. Get all of them, even if it's conventional email.
Oh yeah.
And, I mean, before we close.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that talk, Overcoming the Mirage of UX Ambiguity. Thanks again to the folks in South Africa who gave me the opportunity to share on that topic. Before we shut down today, don't forget, go out to kaizentees.com if you'd like to support the podcast. You want to support the effort of helping people to overcome the mirage of UX ambiguity with some of our UX is not UI merch, our cups, our t-shirts, our hats, things of that nature. If you are so inclined, please go out to the site, kaizentees.com, and purchase your merchandise today. Shipping is relatively fast and things are relatively affordable. If you don't want to get one of the more expensive things, get a simpler thing. But whatever you do, it does help support this show. So thank you again for taking the time to listen today. Thank you for those of you who have supported the Kaizen Tees work. And until next time, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. Until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, wishing everybody all the best. And until then, happy UXing, everybody.